Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is May the 4th. As they say in Star Wars, may the force be with you. It's May the 4th be with you today. I hope everyone is doing well on this fantastic day. I think I hear an echo somewhere. And I wanted to invite everyone to get to know a new member today on our Facebook Live Q&A panel. His name is Bob Malavi. Malavi, correct?
Malavi, yes, correct.
Perfect. Thank you. And Bob, if you wanted to introduce, I know you are the Eckhart Tolle facilitator for the area of Vancouver, and you're mentioned on his website as well. If you want to give a brief introduction of yourself, and then I'll quickly introduce everyone else.
Oh, sure. Just a quick introduction. Oh, it's great to be here, and thank you. Puna, and that's how you pronounce it. Poonam, is that right? Poonam.
Poonam. Poo as in Winnie and num as in number. Poonam. Easy.
Is what, sorry?
Poo as in Winnie and num as in number. Poonam.
Oh, okay, great. Nice, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's nice, very, very nice to be here. I just came in as a fly on the wall, but this is even better. Just like to engage with all of you and just share experiences. I used to share for many years with people in the Vancouver area. We talked about similar questions and what was important and how we've expanded that, what was consciousness, what was awareness, all kinds of things like that. So I'm just very happy to be here and join the growing group on the planet, and just seeing new faces from here. I see a lot of the similar folks over in Vancouver, and it's just a fresh area that we, looking at this and expanding on that. So I just appreciate being here. So thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor and a privilege to have all of you.
Thank you.
The other people on the panel are Patricia, who is a regular member of part of our group meditators, and Marla, who's been with our group meditation group since 2019, right? You were there right from the beginnings with Eileen. So it's been 2.5 years almost that we've all been together. And then Ken, who also started last year with being part of a group meditation group. And that's a mouthful, group meditation group. And so they are a core group that meditates every Friday, and every third Sunday we also meet every third Sunday. I wanted to take the opportunity to announce that on May 21st and May 22nd, the Saturday and Sunday, we again have a workshop. So it's like about for 5 hours. So it's almost like you can use it as a 2-day retreat. So if anybody wants to join the workshop, make it a retreat for yourself, retreat from the mind, and use it to engage in a presence practice. So let's launch into our question. And Bob wanted to join our Facebook Live Q&A panel because this month is Mental Awareness Month. And we have been graced with the perfect question for Mental Awareness Month. And I'll post the question in the chat. This person asks, can someone explain depression, shed some light? I can tell you what it feels like. All of your passions become avoidances. All of your answers become questions. The path from one instance to the other becomes a struggle. Prayer becomes a wandering thought. So I'll give it to you, Bob, since you wanted to talk about Mental Awareness Month, and mental awareness implies anxiety, depression, bipolar behavior, any kind of mental illness. So you want to get started?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I would love to. This is fresh for me being here, so I appreciate that. And so there's many ways to explore that. And it's the first thing I do mention with people is, if we've noticed on the planet, like even over the past number of years, how much that has expanded, like much more depression, much more illness. It's been going on and on. So it almost feels like there's no spiritual escape, so to speak, or there's nowhere to go, even though I'm going through uh, my spiritual growth. And so a lot of questions come up that say, what am I doing wrong? What's happening here now? And then they kind of get lost in the mode of personhood, let's call it. And so something I talk about, let's say coming from Eckhart Tolle, for example, he talks about, of course, awareness, awakening, and to awaken is coming out from more from immunity, or bringing in more immunity in this. Like we've faced virus challenges and all kinds of challenges. So I remember him talking about immunity, and that comes in from the cellular level as well. So there's all kinds of benefits that can uh, come out from that when people start to recognize and explore that, on how much it can be accessible, and it's direct, so it's not just a talk. They can feel that for themselves. So that's just one thing that I can share.
Did you want to share some of your personal story as well, Bob? Thank you so much. You were talking about an accident right before we started the live. So if you wanted to
Absolutely.
talk about it, thank you.
Sure, sure. So there's a lot to that, and so I'll narrow it down in Cole's notes version, because it takes a bit for the story. So when people are going a lot of times through, what am I going to do? How come this is happening to? How come me? This is happening to me. This is a lot going on. So there's a lot of me's, right? And so me myself, about 8 years ago or so, I went through an unexpected surface level tragedy, which I was very healthy. I was able to do a lot of stuff, help a lot of people on the Eckhart Tolle side of things at the beginning, and then I was given the real test. So people who had my book, they know about that. It's in 2013. That's when I had it. So I had the largest. This is from the oncologist. They said I had the largest brain tumor in Vancouver, according to the oncologist. So it was a
Wow.
rare survival rate on my side just from having that massive tumor. And so that's where the big challenges started coming out. And we hear about things about the dark night of the soul, and how to cope with anger and fear, and all that was coming all at once, because all the things that I thought I was doing correctly, it's almost like the universe was coming in and going, okay, we're going to rapid move you to something to see if you can actually squeal through there, or make it up. And I was just remembering that, okay, don't fear, don't do anything like that, just surrender, surrender, surrender. Let go of all the things that I thought were important. And this is a lot on the Eckhart Tolle messages that we spoke about. So I took it in as a test. And so things like the tumor, then of course, cancer was the big one. Of course, they had level 3 cancer, so that's pretty high up there. So that's another, survival rate is not all that great, but I made it through that one as well. So I was almost doing like the big adventure through life. Oh, scoop this one, I made it through this one, and now I had to have the right DNA in order to make it through that one. So I did that one, and then now it's the thinking pattern. So the thinking now is saying, okay, I'm ready for this. When I'm saying I'm ready for this, I'm just saying universe is saying I'm ready for this, because as this is happening, the thinking no longer happens as often. In fact, there's no real choice. Like I can't plan for what I'm about to do in terms of speaking and things like that. Essentially because the cognitive factors are not the same as most people. It just kind of, broke up into all kinds of pieces. So the last part about that is just the blindness part. So that was quite a challenging, even more than the other stuff. But the blindness part is like 50 to 70% vision. So and then also going around Vancouver, the area I live in is the most one of the most densely populated with bicycles and population. So there I'm, oh no, right. So going across, but that's also part of the adventure. And so when people hear about this, it's somehow when we start to connect, it helps them when they go through all those things like fear and anxiety, or they can kind of expand more on the story I share as well, to see if it comes into their hearts, to see if it's something that they can help see the world differently, something like that. Yeah. There's a lot more to it, but that's just a little bit.
That's an incredibly amazing journey, Bob. Thank you so much. It's like so deeply humbling to hear that you battled all of that. And is your eyesight still, I mean, is your eyesight restored?
No, it's there. In fact, on the eyesight, it's going, it's going downhill. It could be cataracts or anything like that.
Okay.
But when things like that happen, again, there's always the big messages that help you to go transcend beyond that. So those are talks I do as well down the road. What I've gone through this is like when everything is gone, at the last moment, what is there left, and just zoning in on that.
We talk along with Eckhart's teachings. One of the things that we talk about is Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings. And Dr. Joe Dispenza always says that we can always get to that. So he talks about that there are infinite potentials, right? Like time is divided in such a way, or the way he explains it is when we are saying we want to go for a cup of coffee, we are moving through space to create time. We are walking towards the cup of coffee, but there's a way to, so time is creating space, but there's a way to collapse it. And there are infinite possibilities of it. And in one infinite possibility, one of the possibilities is where you're completely healed. And so you can look up his testimonials. There are quite a few testimonials where people have, it's called, Marla may know the word, self-remission, remission. It's like spontaneous healing. Is that what it would be called, Marla?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but that's what it means, is spontaneous remission. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So people have healed themselves, like with huge tumors. They've immediately like gone in through his progressive or advanced workshop, and they've healed themselves. So I would strongly recommend, like if you can attend one of his advanced workshops, maybe you'll find a Bob that in those infinite universes or infinite possibilities, there's one that is completely healed. And look at what more you can give to the world when you're completely healed, right? That potential is there in you. But it's awe-inspiring to hear you say the story, and the fact that you have a huge smile and so much spirit to give to all of us, to teach us through your experience, right? So thank you. I'm deeply humbled by it. Thank you so much. So grateful. Marla, did you want to talk about depression, and then we can go to Jason's question?
Well, it's one of my close acquaintances, closest friends, I guess. Frenemy.
Frenemy?
Yeah, a friend.
So what does someone explain it, shed some light on it, and then this person told their experience, but maybe you have a better explanation of what it is.
I imagine everyone has their own individual experience with depression. Um, mine, mine has been almost lifelong in a clinical kind of a way. I discovered, I don't think I shared this before, that when I was diagnosed with depression, when it finally, let me go back. The way I understand depression from my experience is that I have been knocked down, so to speak. I have been injured emotionally and psychologically. And then I can get up and move again. And then I get knocked down again. And then I can get up and move. But every time it's a little bit harder. And what I realized after I had been in such a deep depression that I was suicidal, that I came out of that, and the way I came out of that was like miraculous. I mean, it's beautiful, and I could go into more detail. But what I realized was that I've been depressed since I was a child, and I knew that because the feelings I had at that moment were very familiar, and I could recall times in my early childhood when I felt that way. To me, depression is lack of being able to access myself, to access joy, to access emotions, to access, the word is good. Your life spirit is just depressed to the point of not being able to express itself. And boy, I just don't know how much detail to do here, but I can say that the way it felt to me the last time that it hit me was the pain in my chest. I had a very physical pain, and it was a loneliness pain. It felt like loneliness. That was so painful that I can't, I said, I put my head against the wall and I said, I can't go through time. I cannot bear this. This is unbearable. And what happened to me was it all just collapsed. And it was like I had nothing that I could say or feel. She says all of your passions become avoidances. Yes. All of your answers become questions. Well, I wasn't even at the point where I had questions, except what am I going to do about my 4 children? The path from one instance to the other becomes a struggle. I felt physically like I was moving through honey. That's the way I could describe it. I mean, if you put your hand in a honey jar and you move your hand around, it takes a lot of effort. And that's the way life felt to me. Thinking felt that way. Moving felt that way. There was no feeling. It was just all almost gone, to the point where I had no energy to do anything. And what was required to get me out of that was, first of all, somebody else needed to come along and see the problem and intervene. And I had been not going to work for a while. And my boss came to see me and she said, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. She said, what do you need? I said, I don't know. I said, I don't even care. And she said, well, come with me. We're going to get in the car. I'm going to take you to your counselor, your therapist. Because I was seeing a relationship counselor. It was all kicked off by a relationship that I ended. I ended it. It wasn't that it was done to me. Yeah, I ended it because I knew it was bad. And when I got there, I sat in the chair and she said to me, how are you feeling? And I had no answer. I felt nothing. And she wasn't used to that. She was used to crying. She was used to yelling. She was used to, I'm very verbal generally. And she said to me, you're carrying pain that is not yours. And I didn't know what she was talking about, just sitting there. And she said, she pulled up another chair in front of me, and she set the chair facing me, and she said, now, your mother is sitting in that chair. And all the pain that you're feeling, I actually didn't feel like I was feeling pain, but she knew. She recognized it from her own experience. She said, I want you to take that pain and get up and walk across the room and give it to your mother. And I thought, well, that's stupid. There's no mother there. She's dead. There's no mother there. And well, she wasn't dead, actually. She was dead to me, but she wasn't dead at the time. But it took me a good 10 minutes, and she was very patient. My therapist was very patient. She sat there and just waited. And pretty soon I did get up, and I gathered up imaginary pain from myself, and I went and I put it on her, like I pretended to put it on the chair. And I went back and sat down and started crying. And she said, there, we have feelings. We have feelings back again. And that was the turning point for me. And then she said to me, I can either hospitalize you or I can give you some medication. What's your choice? So from that point on, it was a long journey. It was not a turnaround all at once kind of thing. And it took me into psychodrama. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of psychodrama, where you actually act out with other people a hurtful incidents in your life, and you reprogram it. It's very physical. You do it physically and psychologically. So I was, a few years into that. There's been a lot in my life that I can't really give anyone a picture of, I don't think. But 2 weeks after I was on the right medication, I came back to her and I said, you know what happened to me the other day? I was driving down the street and I looked around, and all of a sudden everybody was friendly. Everybody was friendly. Why is everybody so friendly all of a sudden? They're nice, they're happy, they're tall, they smile at me. And it was a shift in me. It was not a shift out there in the world, but that's the way it appeared to me, like the world changed. And that was like, and it was a lifting. It was a lifting of this heavy, heavy, heavy pressure that was on me. And I mean, that's the way it felt. And that was when I was, that was 30 years ago. That was about 30 years ago. And I've been through a lot more healing since then. That was just an unburdening of the first part. But depression is not something that you can just think yourself out of. It's very real. It could be clinical. There's a lot of different causes of depression. And I don't in any way believe that there's one cure, a cure. And sometimes, well, let me just regroup here for a minute. In my case, it had become clinical. It was a brain, a hormone problem. It had become clinical. And that was over several decades there. And it was like being knocked down one time after another. And I couldn't get back up by myself. Some people can get out of depression through physical exercise. Some people's spirituality is so well developed, their presence power is so well developed that they can almost like climb on top of it. But I don't believe it's something that you can just you can talk yourself out of. To deny it is not going to help either. To cover it up with something that ends up turning into an addiction. Sometimes people will take substances, or they will use sex, or they will use something else to push them into a state where they can feel something. because when you're in a depression, you don't feel anything. Your emotions are just down and your body's down. I wasn't hungry. Some people are, but I lost my appetite. I lost weight. I didn't care if I ever, and I couldn't sleep. Now, why can't I sleep? So I don't know. It can be very, very negative thing. And it's not something that people can just work their way out of. We need to reach out for help. Sometimes people get to the bottom of depression and they don't have any energy. So suicide is not an option at that point because they don't have the energy to do it. They don't have the energy to act. So it's only sometimes as they're coming back up out of depression. I learned this later because I was taking psychology classes and a coursework in that. I realized that as you come up and you start to get your energy back, then you can make plans. Then you can act on it and you can say, I'm never going to go through that again. We'll just end it. I did get to that point and I had myself convinced that my children would be better off without me. Now that's distorted thinking. There's very distorted thinking that goes on in depression. And just to realize how distorted that was helped me because my children are everything to me. And to get to the point where I was saying they'd be better off without me, I knew I had to do something. So I guess that's maybe what I have to offer to this person, but I can certainly understand what she's saying when she says, I can tell you what it feels like. That's what it feels like to her. I couldn't even have gotten those words out to explain any of that, except that it did feel like I was moving through honey. That's the way I could feel it. But there's hope on the other side, and there's depending on what the cause is. So, are you talking? I can't hear you.
Sorry. I tried to put myself on mute so that you have clear sound, and then I forget that I'm on mute. Thank you so much, Marla. So do you think that the person who's under depression has enough cognition to actually go to a therapist?
Perhaps, hopefully.
Or do they need some relative or a family member to take them to the therapist?
Well, only they would know that. I mean, and she is reaching out here. And the depression is not a state that you have to stay in. Depression does not have to mean that this is the way I'm going to live the rest of my life. But it took me some time to become even. It didn't all happen at once. I went to another therapist before I hit that point. And she asked how I was doing. And I said, I'm depressed. I knew I was depressed. This person knows they're depressed. You just about cannot plan your own way out of it. You have to have some help. And when I lost my appetite, she said, you have to put something in your mouth 3 times a day. That was as best she could say it, because she'd been through it too. So there's somebody out there for you, my dear, who can really help you with this. And it's almost like your spirit goes to sleep. It could be you could call it a dark night of the soul. I didn't phrase it that way, but it could be felt that way. Yes, could be felt that way. And if you want to come out of it, that's what you need, is the desire and the intention to overcome. And the problem with feeling that way is you don't have the energy to do it when you're in depression. That's why you need help. So, okay.
So that would also imply that that person was carrying a heavy pain body as well, right?
Definitely.
The pain body had a lot to do with it. And then it's not just, when we say pain body, it's not only the personal pain body, it's the collective pain body of that culture. We are women, so we are carrying the collective feminine pain body, right?
Mhm. I think that the way I think of it, when Eckhart says pain body, that was difficult for me to wrap my head around. I have another body inside of me and it's pain. And then I looked at the language that he's German, right? Is he German?
Mm-hmm. He's German.
Okay. In other languages, they phrase it differently. We would probably say a body of pain, a ball of pain, which is, he says pain body. I would say this body of pain in me that had been building up all these years had weighted down on me so much that it only took one more jab and I was down below the ability to get up to the top of the water again. Yes, it's a pain body. And that's what I had to heal. I had to go back through, not that had I been told at the time, I would have said, no, I don't want to do that. But it was possible a little at a time. It's amazing what's possible. I'm just in awe of the power of life and the power of presence and the power of spirit to be. It will prevail with our intention. It will prevail. That's what I have to offer.
Thank you, Marla. And I agree, because even I had a heavy pain body. I never went through depression of any that heavy depression, but I knew I had a lot of anger, and underneath anger, there's always pain, right? But my mom was like Eckhart's father with violent temper, and my grandmother, her mother, was maybe a million times more than my mother. So my mother was a million times more than I was. So I think we were repeating a generational pattern of anger, but the pain was there. So this path has led to learning how to dissolve that pain body. But yes, the pain body contributes a lot to our depression as well. So thank you for that. Patricia, I know you were talking about lemon balm before we started, so we can talk about some of the supplements as well. Did you want to talk about the depression?
Yes, but something is telling me to let Ken go first.
You want
So
Ken to go first? Okay.
I'm gonna go with that. So I'm listening. It's like,
Okay.
all right. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Ken, go ahead.
Okay.
You're waiting to like uncover some kind of absolute truth for all of us, since I wanted to ask Ken, but I was like, no, Patricia, she joined first, so let me give it to her. Go ahead, Ken. There must be something.
So something in the air.
Something in the air. Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to thank Bob for his story and his presence, and also Mala with what you had said, and I can so relate to both of you in my own experiences. And I know for a long time I've had depression, and there's even times I still go through it. And what I mean when I go through it, that it shows up, and with different parts of, I want to say, my subpersonalities, things that I really haven't worked through that I thought I had. It's part of the test. Things will come up again. And I think for me, dealing with my depression is, in the late 80s, 1988, that was a period of time where I didn't want to live anymore. And at that time also, I had stopped drinking for a year. So I was considered a dry drunk. I hadn't really done any work, but I had all the symptoms of why I did drink, and understanding that I was numbing myself, drowning myself. I also was an angry person, and I wasn't into my feelings at all. I didn't even know the difference between thinking and feeling. Very, very confused, but I was hurting a lot. And so things had happened where my depression got so bad that it seemed like all the walls started to come down on me. And that's where the first thing I did was I didn't want to hang on to the pain anymore, but I didn't have any understanding how to deal with it. And that was through my human ignorance. So I actually got on my knees and I prayed and I surrendered and I bawled my eyes out. It was such an incredible surrender. Within, I don't know, a day or two, I had an incredible awakening with that surrender. And it led me on a path of a life that I didn't know existed. And so there are different times of my life, and I realized that I was trying to survive on self-reliance, meaning me, my humanness, my thinking, my human knowledge, my programming, how I've been taught, what I was surrounded by. So that's what was inside of me. And believe me, a lot of that, of my programming, was very depressing. And so dealing with, I want to call the pain body, that there is when I get triggered or when things come up, it's usually a past trauma or something from my past that happened that I didn't deal with. And as a young child, much of my programming, that's when I got programmed. And I now realize at this stage of the game of my life that I had to kind of hold myself because I didn't have anybody to hold me emotionally, physically, mentally. And at that point, there was no spiritual awakening. So my spiritual part of me was bankrupt. And so I was trying to run through life on self-reliance. And that brought on a lot of depressed states of mind. And realizing also that now with energy, energy flows through us. And if energy doesn't flow through us, that it gets blocked somewhere in the body, depending on what the issue is. And so, and I've gone through many, many different things in my life. And I now realize that I came into this life as a spiritual being, having a human experience. And I now realize that everything that I'm going through on my path, that now there's a reason for it. And realizing I'm being used by the Spirit to really be available to help others. And I used to think I was a very, very weak person. And I was very, very emotional and very much a feeling person, which I denied. And now realizing that that's why, so according to what some of these questions are, what brings on depression is not being your true self, being the false self. And by doing that and living with uncomfortable feelings or uncomfortableness within our whole being, that there's something blocked, something that is being affected. And I love what Marla was saying about we need help. And depending on what it is, because there's different types of depression. And some people do need medication. And some people need to pray. Some people need to be with other people going through the same thing that they're going through. And when that happens, something inside, and I want to say magically happens. That's because we're in tune with others going through similar things, but we may be unaware of that at the time. So it's very, very important that we have movement in some way, meaning listening, reading, being around others. And so it's something where it says, all the answers become questions. The path from one instance to the other become a struggle. Prayer becomes a wandering thought. And I can relate to that. And it's funny, I've been going through something just recently, and it has to do with family. And realizing that how much I took on from my parents, and realized that also the same thing happened to my kids. They took on where I was. And I'm actually doing some work with one of my sons, and I'm helping him out, and I'm seeing all kinds of things because he has a contractor that is building the house and a lot of subcontractors, where I'm seeing so much stuff. And I also had a business that I retired from 7 years ago. So I have not been affiliated being around people like that. And when I did, I went, oh my God, it brought up so much stuff, anger, frustration, just seeing things. And then realizing that I had such a hard time confronting people because I was afraid, low self-esteem, thought I wasn't good enough, and so on. And my son is exactly the same way. And I'm looking at that, and at first I start to get a little upset. But being with the group and having this understanding, once I started to slow down and pay attention and be aware and listen, then I was able to put what I call the puzzle together. I was able to put the pieces together of where he was at. And so there was healing for myself. And there were some things I had to tell my son, I can't do that for you. And he looked at me like, what do you mean? And I said, you got to figure this out, and you got to confront this. And I said, in fact, I'm going to even put my foot down and say, if you don't do something about this, I'm not going to be able to help you on a certain situation. Well, 3 or 4 hours later, he calls me up and he says, I made the call, and they said they'll take care of it tomorrow. And they did. And then he thanked me the next day. He says, if you hadn't confronted me the way you did, and he says, I was angry at you. And anyway, and so the saying about the truth hurts. And the thing is, we have to understand that self-reliance or thinking or repeating behaviors that just aren't working will just continue until we really have that transformation. So going back to whoever had written this, it's something where you're not alone. And I would say try different things, and something will shift or something will happen. Just try to talk with other people going through things, and confronting your fears is the biggest blessing. And I just want to say also about loving myself, because I really didn't start loving myself until the last 4 or 5 years of my life, but really start loving myself in the last 2 years. So once I started to shift that muscle or that way of thinking, my life started to change in miraculous ways. And it's something where that miraculous way of changing would happen whether I believe in a God or not. The thing is, there are certain principles, there are certain ways to be, and it's life-changing. And I can think of how many different areas of my life that I had to get really full of pain, and that suffering, and then realizing when I do, that's a signal to let go, to talk about it, and to really change. So I'm just so thankful that even this last experience I was in just 2 days ago, that's when I had to let go. And when I because I was so angry, because I couldn't stand what I was seeing other people doing. But the angrier I got, guess what? I'm manifesting it. And the more came on, the more stuff just started to come in. And then all of a sudden I let go 2 days ago. It's already going the other way. It's already starting to.
Fantastic.
So anyway,
Incredible.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. Yeah, by focusing where attention goes, energy flows. As
Absolutely.
Dr. Joe Dispenza says, right? You're
Yeah.
giving it attention, you're constantly thinking about it, how they're cheating your son, how they are betraying your son, how they're doing something wrong in the construction process, and they're doing this wrong and they're doing that wrong. And the more you focus on it, the fourth thing will go wrong, and the fifth thing will go wrong, and the sixth, they won't put the nozzle right, they won't run the pipes right, then they won't run the sprinkler system right, they won't put the sod down right. It'll just
Absolutely.
multiply. And what I would say is the way you would, the only thing I could say is when you communicate with your son, you could potentially be vulnerable and say, look, I see this in myself, that I was not able to stand up. I was very emotional as a young man. I was very extremely almost effeminate as a young man. And my parents never supported me. My brothers never supported me. They wanted, that culture. Now think, your parents are 80, 90 years old, right? That generation, when they look at a male form, and that's why we are having so many gay, lesbian, LGBTQ people to break the gender identity. How identified are we as a human race that if this form is male, then it needs to behave a certain way. It needs to be manly. It shouldn't have emotions. How gender what is the opinion we have, right?
Mhm.
And we want that person dressed as a male, not wear skirts, not talking in a like feminine manner, right? Sit like a man, not like with folded legs and all that, right?
Mhm.
Act like a man, right? Go play sports like a man, right? Like be in some kind of very physicality, show the physicality in the sport. And if you choose not to do it, then you're not a man enough, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you can explain that, like have tell your son, I want to talk to you very clearly, and talk about yourself. Don't show anger. I mean, there's no anger. If it all goes wrong, it goes wrong. That is the business of the present moment. Just say, after you explain that, and say, hey, I see these 5 things going wrong. What I would like for you to do is go ahead and call them. And if you don't call them, then I don't want to be part of things that are going wrong, because I'm here as an expert who's already been in this field to help you detect all of this so that you build a beautiful home. That is my goal, right? That you build a home that is foundationally correct, right? Everything is properly done, right? If not, you'll go get into problems like undoing it 5 years from now. Like correcting the sod will take twice as much money. Correcting the sprinkler system will take twice as much money. If you do it while it's being built correctly, then it's no money, and it's part of the builder's, whatever you pay the builder for the house, right? It's part of that charge. So that's all I would do. Is you don't have to be angry. There's no anger
Oh.
needed in that process, right?
Well, I just wanted to say that that's what I saw myself getting angry in a couple of days. And that's just the last couple of days. That's why I couldn't even come to some of the other showing up. I was like out of control. So, and everything you're saying, believe me, that's exactly what I said. And he actually got to the point, I know they're not doing it right, but I can't deal with the depressed, the anxiety. I just got to have them out of here. I can't do this anymore. And I went, I needed to accept that
Right.
that was his decision, because it's his house. And that was so hard for me to accept. You're not going to say anything, and they're doing all, and so that's when I said, I have to. I've never been able to do this before because I was a controller. So anyway, it was just, everything you just said, Poonam, is amazing. And that's pretty much what I tried to do, but they weren't ready for it. And both his wife was the same way. So, but anyway, thank you so much. You confirmed so
Thank you.
much that, thank you.
One of the reasons why, like what medical medium would say, and actually, you know, we've talked in the group meditation quite a bit, and Summer is following Sadhguru as well. Sadhguru is going through a Save Soil movement, right? So what he's saying is the first, like almost, it seems like the 20 inches of topsoil has no nutrients left at all. So what happens is all of us, like maybe our parents and grandparents were tough enough to tough it out. So there was not that much depression. There was not that much mental anxiety, but our children, our generation, our children, our children's children, the younger generation, everybody is not getting nutrient dense food. And leave alone not getting nutrient dense food, there are so many environmental pollutants, right? I didn't even realize that even the Febreze or Lysol that we spray in the air, or the cologne and perfumes that we spray, is pesticide. It's a pesticide. It's the same aerosol that goes in, just like the pesticides and insecticides herbicides go into our system. So the environmental pollutants, there are so many environmental pollutants already that, leave alone, we've done pharmaceutical drugs, right? As children, I mean, we would have had different kinds of pharmaceutical drugs for all the disease states that we had, so many antibiotics and all that, right? The Z-Pack goes out, like the moment you say sinus infection, the doctor will write a Z-Pack and you're having antibiotics. We had alcohol. Alcohol is a toxin. So what happens is all that goes and settles in our brain. And this is what Medical Medium has written 2 books for October release, which is Brain Saver. Perfectly for this, this environment right now. He's picked up what is happening to children, and with the pandemic, it's happening to children, right? Teenagers are going through suicidal tendencies. So many teenagers are committing suicide. Since it's mental awareness, so many teenagers are committing suicide. So it all is because we are not having nutrient dense food. And then the metals, all these are considered metals, all these aerosols, scents, perfumes, everything is considered a metal. It goes and settles in our brain, and that's what causes depression, anxiety, bipolar behavior. He calls it depersonalization. So cleansing mental toxins out of a body is very, very necessary. So with that, I'll go to Patricia. You want to talk about some of this? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
My first thought was that most of us dealt with depression, and that was almost a gift, suffering. So it gave us, there is something else besides us that wants to separate, and we needed this depression to realize that. So many times I feel that suffering is a lesson. It's like we are given this lesson to learn. And until we realize that we are not the suffering, even in Eckhart Tolle, in his book, Power of Now, he said we need this suffering until we realize that we don't need it anymore. And that's when we become free from it. And that's when he says, in the present moment, when you realize, when you're just sitting there and breathing. Just take breaths. So I think I suffered from depression also since childhood, and I didn't even realize it. So there was anger, there was crying, it was victim identity. I went through all of this, but I feel that there was always some presence in me that was pointing me here and there into directions. As a young kid, I was going through Catholic school, so I found some release in the prayers to God. I was talking to God, sometimes sitting alone in my room, just talking to God. Then I became older, obviously hormones, started. So then the angry brain, that I needed to be very successful in school because I didn't want my dad, he is brilliant engineer, to have to help me, because one time he helped me with math and it was such a stressful experience that I broke a pen as a 7-year-old kid. I just kind of snapped it. So there was such an energy in me, wanting to, and it was like I almost wanted to kill him. And it's just so, I went through those experiences that I seeing my mother, who was so weak that she couldn't protect me. And then my brother, when she was born, from him. It's like, but all of this time, there was some presence. I used to go on walks myself to just look at the trees and seeing water. I was trying to, find that balance, that I'm not all that anger. I don't want to carry it. I can't carry it. So let me see if something can take it away. So I found moments, with nature, just beauty of nature stuff. So it was over, but nobody ever told me at that point, oh, there's something wrong with you. You have to go to psychologist. I grew up in Poland, so going to psychologist was not an option because you were considered completely insane. So there was not a culture that supported, dealing with mental illnesses. So plus, everybody was just depressed in Poland. I actually feel that we carry this as a nation from the years and years of wars and abuse and, different countries trying to take over so it's just a lot of it. So it was grace, I think, that helped me in those moments. And the grace brought me here into United States, where, the psychology was more like daily everywhere. You can actually find self-books, read. And I found first time I come across that power presence was by the work of Gurdjieff. And my future in-laws took me when I was 19 years old to the group meeting, this book discussion in the library. There was Gurdjieff groups. And this is the first time they were talking about the power of observing oneself, like witnessing the moment, what's happening, and how we constantly fall asleep. So they had exercises like, remember when you start your car, or do it with not the right hand, or with the left hand, so it will do something unusual out of the habit, so it will bring you back to the present moment. Like if you're right-handed in brushing your teeth, brush it with left hand, because it will force you out of your habit. Stuff like this. So even then, the universe was giving me hints. But I was not ready. I was not ready yet. I just like, what is that voodoo stuff? And then I had to go through more suffering, which Eckhart says also, if you don't understand what I'm saying about power of present moment, you just need more suffering and you'll get there eventually. And that's what happens to all of us. So we keep getting that suffering, which is really learning. It's our assignment, like Marianne Williamson said, for us to really look, and the message is a lesson. So my advice would be to be grateful for it. It's like actually thanking. And then the way to get reconnected with your body is just maybe to put your hands on your heart and actually feel it beating and feeling the life. In the moment of depression, when everything was like, that's what I did. It's almost like I felt my being beyond my head, beyond my mind. And that would, help me survive till the next moment. But yeah, it was tough. So I love Marla's analogy to going through honey, because I love honey and I understand, because many times I eat it with a finger, especially the cream honey, but so it's sweet, but you can't access it. And it's so hard to, we're like not noticing the right stuff. And there is another stuff. I think for me, what happens, I did everything at once. I believe that there is mind, body, and spirit connection, and they need to work together. So I read a lot of books, like spiritual teachings, just to feed my mind with positive words, instead of all the negativity. Just feed them with positivity. They vibrate, also the positive words vibrate on a much higher level. So I needed those messages. I also exercise, I love to swim. So I would go just swimming and being alone in the lake and just feeling the connection with all the elements, the air and the sun, the water. It was just amazing. I also did yoga, bike ride. So that physical element, sometimes you just have to release that energy. You have that anger, or it just has to go out. You have to let it just flow. And also lately, thanks to the group and suggestion of Poonam, I looked into medical media and his answers on all the depression. Also, the next question about addiction is very connected to it. It's all neurological. So medical medium talks about inflammation of our nervous system, and all those depression, anxieties, addictions, and it comes from that, because our neurological system cannot function properly. And like Poonam mentioned, with the heavy metals that are from everywhere coming into our body cannot get rid of them. So they get stuck in our brain mostly, and then neurons cannot fire, and get connected the right way, and that's what happens. So I would suggest do all of those things at once. Really get the help from the supplements, because this is incredible. That's what happened to me. And it's pretty fast, because once you're depressed, Marla said, you don't even want to do anything. But there is some life in us that is aware of that. Even when Marla had that head against the wall, it's like, I don't want it. Who said that? Right? And who witnessed you saying that? There was some presence. So that's huge. This is like depression. You can reconnect with that and be aware you're not the depression. You're just experiencing it. You're experiencing the depression. You're experiencing the addiction. And there is obviously chemical component to it. So medical medium would help that with that huge, just the detox from the heavy metals, to just at least move the needle a little bit, so we can help with the spiritual work, bring the vibration up, because we need to come out of that heaviness. What Marla said, it's like, yeah, the pain body is so heavy. We are stuck in that such low vibrations that we need to either mentally talk ourselves out of it, just go from depression. But there's what is still there. There's blue sky. I can breathe. My heart is beating. there's stuff like that for me. So it was all those components put together, because when I just did one thing like reading books, that didn't do it. When I was just exercising, that would just cause me more adrenal fatigue. I was so tired, I couldn't even get out of bed. So when people say, oh, you're depressed, you just sleep and it will give you energy. I was waking up like 11 o'clock, almost lunchtime, and didn't have any energy. The more I actually slept, the worse it was. So, physical by itself didn't help me either. And, supplements, obviously, you have to have the right ones and know what you're doing. So that came with the knowledge of medical medium. So I would put all those elements together. And the way to also raise your vibrations in the moment of depression is just either meditate, maybe, or say, oh, I know Ken knows that. It's the Ho'oponopono. I would just go right to it. Just say, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. Just saying those 4 sentences, something happens, like energetically. So maybe just the minute, we depress and we don't want to even do anything, just close your eyes, take a breath, put your hand on your heart and say that, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. And because I didn't want to go, like Marla was on medicine, my colleagues, my friends said, you have to go to psychologists, they have to put you on Xanax or whatever those in something will do to your brain. You need help. I said, I didn't believe it. I said, I do not want to get drugged. I don't want it. Because I knew that everything chemically, what you put in your body, yes, it might help for a while, one thing, but it destroys everything else. I needed something holistic. So now with medical medium, if I know that these are things that can only help, they cannot make you worse in any other way, they help every organ. That's what I like. And they're natural. So definitely. But you always have to start with that one step. So just maybe the breathing and Ho'oponopono. And the same with addiction. This is the same thing. Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing to what I was saying before? When I started to feel better and that heaviness, because when you think about carrying a weight, it depresses, right? It pushes down your life force. When I started to feel better, I literally felt taller. I felt lighter. And I had dreams where I was floating above the ground. And I mean, I felt lighter, the weight of that oppressive weight was gone. And the type of medication that worked for me was the kind that, not that added an artificial substance to mask or anything like that. It was what's called, let's see if I can do this, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which means that serotonin is the hormone that was depressed. And what happens is it gets released in your brain, and then what doesn't get picked up by the next neuron gets reabsorbed. Okay. So what was happening was I was picking up some, but then there was no more there to pick up. So this was inhibiting the reuptake of what was left over. So there was more available to me. And that's what I needed. And I had to experiment with dosages, and I had to experiment with, when I was under a lot of stress, I had to make some adjustments, because it can be an overload of serotonin if you're not careful. but I did change my diet, and I did do a lot of these other things that Patricia's been talking about. One thing, I don't know if it got mentioned, I was gone for a while. I was gone for a while because my great granddaughter came crawling into the room. She's 8 months old, and I just couldn't resist. I had to take a minute and visit with my 8-month-old great granddaughter. It's just too much to resist. Talk about a spirit lifter. That's a spirit lifter right there. Playing with children, being around children, being around animals, anything that is light and healthy, and singing. I would put on music, positive music that I loved. If you can just find something that feels good. And I'm not talking about addictive substances. That's what people turn to, but you don't need that. There's music, there's singing, dancing. There's all kinds of ways to lift your energy without resorting to substances that then become another problem to deal with. So that's all I wanted to add. I remember that being really important to me, was to have the right music on all the time. It had to be an uplifting music. It couldn't even be meditative music. It had to be the right kind of music. And if you play with it and find it, there's enough music available now that's easy. And Ken, it was in 1988 that I went through one of my crises too. So something about that period of time, like Poonam has mentioned before, I don't know what it was, but wow, that was a major turning point in my life, 88, 89. That's when I made my exodus from slavery into the promised land. So
that is also politically in Europe. Was the 89 was when the Berlin Wall was, crashed. And so there's a lot of,
and it was just, I don't know what was going on. I don't pretend to try to understand it, but there was something in the energy that was contributing to us all experiencing that. Plus,
Thank you so much.
The weight of all the generations of pain that I was carrying. I realized it was the weight of the generations of pain that had come down to me in the body of pain, the pain body.
I know that it's not, anything with what Eckhart Tolle said, but it's just a different way of looking at it. We are in a book club reading the book of Thich Nhat Hanh about no mud, no lotus. So that depression might be considered, and everything that caused it, the mud, from which we can transcend it into the lotus, which is, the light and the consciousness and the bliss. So we got to understand we need that mud. So be grateful and thankful for it. And I think that changes also. Thich Nhat Hanh said to say, I see you, depression. I'm here. I'll take care of you. So there's that power of mindfulness that's coming up, which is much more powerful than this little, yes, heavy. If you identify with it, it feels like there's nothing else consumes you. But with the mindfulness has a, ability to have a better perspective and lift us up from that depression.
I wish that I had been able to observe myself, or even thought to observe what I was going through. I think I must have, although I didn't think of it like that. And I always, even as a child, have kind of felt like it's going to be okay. Like you expressed, Patricia, that that you're being taken care of. So grace has carried me, most definitely. Grace is.
When you go back, right, and remember those moments, there was something else with you. I mean,
yes.
Otherwise you wouldn't have that memory. You would just be completely identified and that would be gone.
That's right. That's right. No, something kept me up above all of that and carried me along. And sometimes I would sink down and feel like I was drowning, but then, nope, here we come back up again. And for the longest time, it was my youngest child who, came along at a time. She was born in 85 and she was 3 in 1988. And she would help lift me up. So, and I didn't even think of it that way, but grace is amazing. I mean, the universe, I have experienced that the universe wants me to be happy. It wants me to be joyful. Joy is the healthiest emotion there is.
Playfulness, right? Well, joy, yes.
And it's
Yes.
not just you, Marla. It is for all creatures that are on the planet.
Yes,
Like Eckhart
that
talks
now.
about the Bible, right? That Jesus said, if God clothes the flowers with so much beauty, then how much more would God want to do for you? Or something along those lines, right? It's true for each and every human being, even the ones that are now at this moment on the verge of committing suicide, right?
And what I
There
know
is
about,
grace.
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
There is grace available to them,
Mhm.
right? I wanted to real quick talk about in the book Cleanse to Heal, what medical medium says about depression, that traumatic loss, traumatic stress, and emotional injury are common identifiable causes of depression. These traumas can create a long-lasting neurotransmitter deficiency, leading to depression that sometimes continues past the time of hardship. So it's like past the time of hardship, we are still depressed, which is the pain body, and that's a neurotransmitter deficiency. So, and he did talk about that. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't want to infringe on his copyright. It is about metal toxins, and he also contributes to Epstein-Barr virus. That there are about 60 varieties of Epstein-Barr virus and 30 varieties of shingles virus and herpes virus. The supplements that he's also talked about on Facebook Live are adaptogens like ashwagandha, lemon balm, licorice root that are that help, and B12. But B12 helps to restore our nervous system, because it's not only I feel it's not only depression, it's also the stress. Like I was just like you're saying you had 4 children. I was a single mom. I had 1 child, but the stress you go through because you have no family, no support system, and now you are here responsible for a little one all by yourself, right? And a little child, and you're there for every game, you're there for every practice, you're there for every event of that person, right? I do want to touch on Jason's, because Jason did pop in, where he said he wanted to know how do we deal with addictions. So if y'all want to real quick, what I would say is an addiction is also a form of not dealing with our emotions. We are either depressed, there's pain within us, we are not dealing with the pain, and now we are looking at something else external to cover up that pain, whether it is smoking, whether it is drinking, whether it is food. And food, I feel, because I am a food addict, or I should say I'm a recovering food addict. I've used
There
kids.
you go.
I'm a recovering, because I wouldn't
Thank you,
say I'm a
Marla.
food, I am a recovering food addict,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So especially since I've been doing medical medium, so I've completely recovered. The diet is so awesome that you get rid of all the cravings. Like I do not crave any other things that I crave anymore. Like I used to crave carbs, like bread and chips, like I was a carb overload person. I wanted carbs. So
Mhm.
fresh bread, and I actually live right behind something like Whole Foods. So they make fresh bread, and I can smell fresh bread being baked every day. When I go for a walk in the evening, they're starting the bread for the next day or something, and I can, but I have no craving. It seems so amazing, right? So addiction, what I feel is we have pain and we have not dealt with pain, which is again a mental illness. We have not dealt with our mental illness,
Correct.
and it is generational,
Mhm.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's something in the family. So Marla, if you want to explain some more of it on addiction, and we'll go around and then we'll end as soon as, if y'all want to be quick on this,
Yes.
since we've already been.
I will be quick. I think people are afraid of pain. I think people feel a little bit of pain and they're afraid that it's going to take them over, that they're going to die, that it means, I just have come to believe that people are so afraid of pain that if I give into it, it's going to swamp me. It's going to overcome me, or I'm going to die, because it can feel like you can feel like you want to die when you're in pain. And it can feel more than you can handle. And so you have to do something with that pain. So the easiest thing to do is alcohol. There's all kinds of drugs you can smoke these days. Food, sugar. I'm a sugar person myself, and my body won't tolerate it anymore. Thank goodness. My body just reacts, and I feel horrible when I have sugar. So it's telling me, no, don't do that. Those kinds of things, food type things, are easier to get over than drugs, because they become a need themselves. And then you've got double the things to worry about: the pain and this substance that you can't do without, which also affects you and adds on to the pain body. So kicking an addiction, getting rid of an addiction, is just the first step, because then you still have that pain there. What are you going to do with that pain? And as my pain became less, it was easier for me to cry it through, to give in and cry it through. But I was always thinking at the time, okay, I'm going to cry for a while, and then I think I can stop. When you don't want to suppress it, but there's a point where you don't have to go on forever with it. And pain doesn't last forever. It comes and it goes. And if you can exercise as you're crying, or as you're, pain, crying doesn't mean weakness. Crying is getting rid of the weakness, which is the pain. I don't know. I just believe that addictions happen because people don't want pain, and they're afraid to feel the pain. But the pain is there to be felt. And if we can feel it and live with the feeling without going on and on in our minds about why we're painful, and telling the stories, as Eckhart says, we're not thinking, don't think about it, just feel it and love yourself. Like Patricia says, what was that little formula? I forgive you. I love you. I've forgotten it, Patricia. What is it?
That's how Ho'oponopono, that's the Hawaiian prayer.
Okay.
And it said, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you.
Yeah, especially if you're pain sometimes, why should I feel this pain? Did I do something wrong? And then the guilt comes in, and oh my gosh. So that would really be useful. I love that little Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, check it out even on YouTube, because there's a lot of, you can put the sentences in a different sequence, just as long as you say 4 of them. And I heard the story that some psychologists, even psychotherapists, just say, just repeat those, and they heal from anything, because there's something in those words that it's almost something else is saying that, than the person addicted to stuff, than the person depressed. Because you conversing with the source, with the universe, with yourself, with your true presence, by admitting those things. So
The other thing that really helped me was to think about parenting myself. The first book that ever helped when I felt depressed, the first thing that I was drawn to was a book called Celebrate Yourself. And I grabbed that book off the shelf. It's like it jumped into my arms. This was way back before any of this stuff I've been talking about happened. And I learned that if I can take care of my children and make them feel better, I can do the same thing to myself. What a concept. Okay, Marla Jean, it's going to be okay, honey. It's going to be okay. It really is okay. I love you. And just, do that. And it's
Self-compassion, self-compassion. Yeah.
It's very powerful, very powerful. It's like being your own perfect parent.
Self-parent,
all know-
reparenting.
We all know what we wanted to get. We all know what we didn't get that we wanted, don't we? Give it to yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Thank you, Mar-
Ken's line to heal our inner child, right?
Yes, that's right, Ken. That's it. So,
Thank you, Marla.
mhm.
So what Eckhart actually talks about addiction in A New Earth or The Power of Now, he says so our mind is the one that is dominating, right? Our mind is saying, oh, I cannot feel this pain, so let me get that chocolate cake. I need, oh, I had a stressful day, let me get, so there's self-talk in the head why we should have the next slice of pizza. Let me order the pizza with like double cheese and all kinds of fixings on it so that I can eat like so much fat and so much whatever, right? Let me order that deep fried something, wings or whatever people have, right? Order wings and then order this and dip it in like ranch dressing or whatever that also is fattening by itself, right? But what we are experiencing in that, one thing is there was a neuroscientist that said that these fast food restaurants, what they play around with is um, uh, synthetic flavors. And the way they put synthetic flavors in the food, like Taco Bell, is to um, it kind of like activates the same pleasure centers that are the feel good pleasure centers that are in our neocortex, right? So what we are getting addicted to is not the wings or the Taco Bell meal or whatever, the Big Mac or double cheeseburger or whatever it may be. What we are getting addicted to is the synthetic flavor, right? If we were not to have that food, if somebody has a food addiction, one thing I would say is move to natural foods as much as possible. Like get the fish, get a natural fish and eat that fish, or get the meat and cook your own meat. Don't go to Burger King. Stop the fast food restaurant eating, right? Where they played around with the flavors. And before you eat, give it a pause. Like go, if something says, go get a slice of cheesecake, take 3 conscious breaths is what Eckhart says, right? Take 3 conscious breaths and see, can you stop
You
it?
still want it. Yeah, if you still take it, right? Because
Do
present
you
second,
still,
your body knows better. Yeah.
right? And maybe you don't want it. And if you want it, go ahead and eat it, but give it a few conscious breaths. So on this, I'll move on to Ken. Ken, you want to
Yes,
talk about addiction?
yes, okay, addiction. It's something where for the best thing or the fastest thing I can say about addiction is for myself is I had to go to a 12-step program. And I learned years ago that I needed to be with other people that were going through the same thing I did. I had to swallow my pride because it was so hard for me to say that I have a problem, because underneath all that, I used to think I didn't deserve to be loved. I used to think I was a mistake. I didn't like myself. So to actually admit that I was, and then go to a program, and the first thing they'll say, come at least 6 times before you make a decision, because feelings will come up that will want to make you not come back. And lo and behold, that's so true. And then by doing that, you start to feel a shift inside yourself. Things will start to change. And there's 12-step programs for just about everything you could think of. And I've done many, many, many different forms. And then what happens is later on, as I expand, I'm going to be drawn to other aspects of what's happening in my life. And I'm going to say that there is being in alignment to different energy fields, because then you start to realize there are other aspects of this healing. There are other energies. There are other ways of seeing things, looking at things. And there isn't just one way. Many people can describe or express themselves and say the same thing, but use their words. And so it's just an expansion of healing and understanding different things. And we'll be drawn to people. We're like magnets. And we start to be drawn to what we need. And that can happen through prayer. That can happen even through our friends. Look and see what we are drawn to. And if you are in an addiction, just notice you're drawn to other people having the same issue. But when you want to reverse the cycle, you'll be drawn to people that want to work through their stuff, almost like in the same manner. It will just be reversed. And then you'll start to say, there is something going on, or you'll start to feel it or whatnot. So there's so many different forms of relapsing in our thinking, in if we are taking a substance, in our emotions, as many people have already mentioned, our emotions. So our natural instincts have been warped by our programming, and that can be our thinking. And that's why some people say mental illness. They don't want to admit they're have a mental illness. All it is, it's our programming and our thinking. And then when we start to understand that, then it starts to make sense. But we first have to start admitting, that we have issues going on, that we have problems going on. But there's also solutions to everything. We don't have to keep recycling the insanity in our thinking or in our emotions. And then we have to understand trauma and understand that there are other aspects that we've been affected. And then when we start going to some of the different programs, that's when we start noticing a shift in our own perception. And when that happens, that's the beginning of the healing process. And then we'll have a spiritual awakening, meaning something really shifts inside of us that we don't understand, or we don't. And then what happens is we start listening to other people, and then we start waking up. That's what the waking up process is. We start waking up slowly. Sometimes it's fast, and sometimes it's slow. So it's it's part of the journey. It's part of our process. It's part of our waking up. It's part of understanding things that we just didn't understand. So, but people that are doing the same thing and things aren't changing, think about it, and to know that there is help out there. So
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result,
results.
right?
Absolutely.
So 12-step program, find out what addiction you have and find the 12-step program for that addiction. Like 12-step program for food, or 12-step program for alcohol, or 12-step program for smoking, whatever the addiction is. Find the
Gambling. It can be
gambling.
sex, it can
Gambling
be
is
even love addiction, anger addiction. So, and I've been going what they call Children of Alcoholics Anonymous, but that's all the inner child. It's all to do with the emotions. And so there's so many different people that will have different addictions. And I can go in any 12-step program, and all I need to do is just change my wording. because many of the programs have the same principles.
Mhm.
And then you start saying, oh, okay, so whatever you're obsessed with, or you keep doing the same thing over and over, you utilize that program or other people going through the same thing, then you feel safe to talk about your vulnerabilities. You feel safe. It's when we don't feel safe, we close up and we start to protect ourselves. And we've protected ourselves from the inner child. We had to, because that was the way we took care of ourselves. We had to put up the walls. We had to believe the lies and the illusions. And then as we get older, then we realize we got to change our programming, and we got to let go of what we've learned that wasn't serving us. And now we reprogram ourselves to what is serving us. And it really is entering a different world. It's entering something completely different. So,
As Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, we return to the default program if you keep doing the insanity, repeating the insanity, right?
mhm,
One of the things, if the addiction is food, what I feel is what helps, and this is what Eckhart has said about bulimia and anorexia as well as um, obesity. You could apply it to obesity. He says the person is so much in their mind that they have a dysfunctional relationship with their body. So they need to actually inhabit their body. The more we inhabit the body, the more we learn its rhythms, right? We learn, we
mhm,
won't have this psychological, this thing that my body is too fat, so I need to be anorexic and throw up, or have bulimia and throw up, right? Or be anorexic. And so the same is offered the other way too. So that's another, they can do inner body meditation that would help immensely if this person were to do inner body meditation. Patricia, you want to wrap it up? We've been talking for a long time today.
Yes, but that's what was needed, I guess, right? Present moment. I don't have too much to add, really just mindfulness and, like you said, reconnecting with your body, because we communicate with some wisdom. I mean, our body breathes. It breathes ourselves. We don't have to tell it to breathe. We don't have to tell it to digest. We don't have to, like, it has such an incredible wisdom in itself. So let's trust it, right? So what I started doing also is like thanking, thank you heart, thank you my heart, thank you liver for
mhm,
cleaning my blood. It's like, and then you're starting, wow, it's such an incredible experience. So just by doing that, instead of being upset, or you fat, you this, like all that bad talk, just gratefulness for, we actually being a human is incredible. We could be a plant, which we would have a different consciousness, but we actually are having the experience as humans. We can do so much. I'm starting right now to wake up, and the first thing I said, I'm so lucky. It's like, yeah, it's my lucky day. And guess what? My mind just makes it lucky somehow, because I make my mind to be servant of my presence, not the other way around.
mhm, mhm.
Y'all are incredibly amazing. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Marla, Ken,
Thank you,
Patricia, and
guys.
I know Christina, Summer, Cecile, Corina, Sandia, all of them were online, so with us. So
Awesome.
this was incredible,
And
incredibly
you
amazing.
better show up on Friday.
Ken,
Yes, I will. I promise. Thank you for loving and accepting me for who I am.
have a
Wonderful.
Thank you
wonderful
so much.
evening, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Many
Bye.
blessings. Much love.
Mm,
Blessings. Bye.
bye.
Grateful.